Mac OS X 2000 to 2001, month-by-month development timeline. Pre-1997 foundations, 1985 to 1996. Next develops OpenStep, an object-oriented operating system on the Mach kernel and BSD layers, featuring Objective-C, Cocoa, Enterprise Objects Framework, and Web Objects. 1993. Next phases out its hardware, focusing entirely on software, OpenStep. OpenStep becomes cross-platform and attracts adoption by Sun and HP. 1997 to 1998. Apple acquires Next, Rhapsody. February 4, 1997. Apple acquires Next for $427 million. Steve Jobs returns to Apple as a consultant. Project Rhapsody begins, merging OpenStep with legacy macOS technology. Avi Tevanian leads OS development. Carbon and classic compatibility concepts are introduced. Initial UI remains a modified macOS GUI. Aqua interface is not yet designed. January 1999. Apple consolidates Rhapsody and OpenStep efforts into a unified macOS X roadmap. Carbon API porting accelerates to preserve legacy Mac software investment. Internal builds still resemble macOS 8.9 visually, masking deep Unix changes. February 1999. Darwin kernel development stabilizes around Mach plus BSD integration. Early Aqua interface experiments begin internally, still incomplete and inconsistent. Cocoa frameworks retain strong next-step lineage, Objective-C, NS prefixed classes. March 1999. Carbon reaches functional parity for most major Mac APIs. Classic environment prototypes successfully boot macOS 9 inside macOS 10. Developer skepticism remains high after Copeland's failure. April 1999. Apple decides Aqua will fully replace Platinum UI for client. Releases. Quartz graphics engine development intensifies to eliminate display PostScript licensing. Dock behavior and animation prototypes are created. May 1999. Darwin is released publicly under the Apple Public Source License. Open source contributions begin feeding back into kernel stability. Terminal.app prototypes expose Unix command line access to developers. June 1999. Carbonized versions of Finder and core utilities enter testing. Java VM porting effort expands. Cocoa APIs are bridged experimentally to Java. Memory protection and preemptive multitasking reach usable stability. July 1999. Internal builds transition fully to Aqua visuals for the first time. Anti-alias text, translucency, and shadow rendering are performance-tuned. Dock replaces application menu internally. August 1999. Developer Preview 1 planning begins. Cocoa and Carbon are formally positioned as equal first-class APIs. Apple Human Interface Guidelines are rewritten for Aqua. September 1999. Carbon application compatibility passes critical benchmarks. Classic environment achieves near-transparent app launching. File system layers mature, preparing for HFS Plus optimization. October 1999. Final preparations for public developer previews. Aqua performance issues identified on lower-end PowerPC hardware. Finder rewritten to support bundles, packages, and Unix permissions. Op. November 1999. Mac OS X Developer Preview 1 released. Developers experience Unix-based Mac OS for the first time. Mixed reactions, excitement over Cocoa, concern over performance. H2 Strong, December 1999. H2. Feedback from Preview 1 drives API refinements. Carbon documentation expanded to reassure third-party developers. Quartz rendering pipeline optimized for real-world workloads. H2 Strong, January 2000. H2. Developer Preview 2 enters internal testing. Aqua animation smoothed. Dock responsiveness improved. Networking stack refined using BSD heritage. February 2000. Classic environment reliability significantly improved. Installer rewritten to simplify deployment for non-technical users. Java integration promoted as a strategic pillar. March 2000. Developer Preview 2 released publicly. Apple demonstrates macOS 10 as both a consumer OS and a Unix workstation. Cocoa adoption slowly increases among new software projects. April 2000. System Preferences Framework replaces multiple legacy control panels. Aqua icons redesigned for clarity and scalability. Dock gains magnification and improved drag-and-drop behavior. May 2000. Performance tuning phase begins in earnest. Kernel panic handling and crash reporting improved. Carbon apps now launch at near-native macOS 9 speeds. June 2000. Developer Preview 3 released with major UI polish. Aqua officially replaces all remaining classic UI components. Finder stability becomes a top internal priority. July 2000. Final API freeze for macOS X 10.0 approaches. Documentation, sample code, and developer tools finalized. Carbon positioned as migration path, Cocoa as future. August 2000. System-wide localization begins. Installer and first boot experience refined. Classic environment officially branded as a compatibility layer. September 2000. Kernel and BSD layers declared feature complete. Security model finalized around Unix permissions. Apple marketing pivots toward power of Unix, simplicity of Mac. October 2000. Release candidate builds distributed internally. Aqua performance optimized on shipping Power Mac hardware. Final dock and Finder behavior locked. November 2000. Prepared. Developer evangelism ramps up ahead of consumer launch. Mac OS X branding finalized. Dropping internal X pronunciation debates. December 2000. Mac OS X deemed ready for public release the following year. Final bug fixes applied. No new features accepted. Transition from development to launch phase complete. Result. By the end of 2000, Mac OS X had successfully transformed NextStep, OpenStep, Rhapsody, Darwin, Mac OS X into a modern Unix-based consumer OS, preserving Mac identity while laying the foundation for today's Mac OS. If you want, I can next do a parallel timeline of NextStep, OpenStep, Mac OS X, create a developer-focused Carbon versus Cocoa evolution timeline, or continue into Mac OS X 10.0, 2001, launch and post-release patches.